I'm finally going hiking again, and you know what that means. I give you a little update on what has been happening since Europe. I think the last status was that my second chapter I submitted to someplace, behavioral ecology I believe, and it got desk rejected, which means that the editor just took a quick look at it, maybe the abstract and the letter, and said, nope, that's not interesting enough for our journal. Yeah, then I resubmitted it to another journal, Behavioral Ecology and Sociobiology, which has just a little bit lower impact factor, and the same happened there. But it is part of the Springer Nature publishing group, and so they again referred me to another journal that is Encycl Socio, with which I have already published my first paper ever. So that was relatively quick then to move it over, and now it has been sitting there awaiting review for a few weeks. So yeah, this is a bunch of rejection, which I don't mind at all, because that's kind of the default, and whenever you get the email of saying I regret to inform you, I was like, yeah, okay, that's to be expected. Looking forward to where to send it next. For some people in academia, that's really a bad thing. They can't deal with rejection. Fortunately, I don't have to deal with that much psychologically. My third chapter also made great progress. And it developed into a nice kind of story, at least nicer than it seemed initially, because I just kept digging and analyzing the data and analyzing them in more ways, and once I found out one thing that didn't make sense, I added another layer of going deeper, so to speak, like bending the data into different ways. It has become quite a lot more complicated, more complex, but also it tells more of the bigger picture story, I hope. Because there's always this nagging doubt in my mind, and every researcher's mind, that you did something wrong in your either data analysis or the way how you got the data. So in the experimental setup, there's just some stupid mistake or like mathematical correlation that you didn't account for that explains everything, and it's all just not very biologically interesting what you found. But so far I still haven't been convinced of that being the case, so I think yeah, it's gonna be a nice little paper. It is almost done. I just have to put the finishing touches on it, on the figures. Also thanks to Anna getting back to me really quickly with a lot of comments.
It was easy to get here. There wouldn't be 40,000 people plus in strong solidarity and support. But let's talk a little bit about those valley experiences.
Right to the left side of your board box.
Candidates, please be seated.
What has been giving me a little more headache lately, though, is the fourth chapter and last one. It is a theoretical paper, so just simulation, modeling, and what it addresses is the question of when you have a track of an animal, how it moves around, taken by GPS, or in my case with videos, you take the positions of the animals at certain intervals of time. Then you're trying to infer something from those data. You're calculating things like the speed and the angles of turns, so how sharply does the animal turn. But the thing is that you never know what the true underlying processes that the animal has been going through. So did the animal actually make a turn, or was it just some noise, or did you miss a turn because you're only measuring the animal every hour or so, but every 20 minutes or so the animal actually makes a slight turn and you're missing that. Look at that beauty. That is a velvet ant. It's not really an ant, but it is a wasp with a very fierce sting. It hurts a lot more than your typical yellow-jacket wasp. Maybe that's also because they are flightless, so they have lost their wings and they're just scuttling around. So there have been different methods proposed and also applied in the literature of getting from this noisy raw tracks from the GPS or the video and resampling the tracks so that you only keep those points that correspond to true turn that the animal made. But of course that's only a mathematical, a statistical way of getting at it, and you don't ask the animal. So there's room for error. And different methods might be better or worse for different scenarios, different animals, how they move, and so on. And so in our fourth chapter, I am trying to figure out, sand in my shoe. I'm trying to figure out what that looks like, which method is good for which kinds of animal movement, and what kind of do you have to keep in mind when applying these methods of finding the true turns of animals. And especially that is the case when the animal doesn't actually move in straight steps and then turns, when it's more like smoothly moving through the landscape, more in arcs and turns. So in theory that sounds all very easy because I make my own ground truth tracks and then I just apply those resampling methods and compare some easy to get metrics. But in practice there's just a lot of parameters that you can vary, like how should the animal move, what kind of thresholds should we assume that the researchers are actually using with their methods, and stuff like that. It just blows up into this hyperdimensional matrix that we have to deal with, and it is really difficult to just distill all of the data down into what is actually the most important thing that we're looking at, and having one plot that tells us, okay, for example, sheep are moving like that, you should use this kind of method. But it's really difficult, and so it required a lot of thinking. But I think I'm getting there. I'm starting slowly, and I'm also being forced to do that kind of sloppily and in small steps now. Because I have finally set my defense date, which is the 7th of July, 7/7, at 10 a.m. That is only a little bit over a month away. And the way this works is that now first I have to give my committee my thesis. So they will have to read it before the defense, and then, after the defense, which is just me giving a talk for 40 or 50 minutes, and then they will ask me for 2 hours maybe afterwards. Specific stuff, more or less about the thesis itself, or going beyond it, or what I want to do for postdoc and stuff like that. And then they will give me back the thesis with their comments, and I will have to address them. And then sometime later, maybe a month or so, I will have to hand it in before the end of the summer semester, actually, which is in the middle of August. Then I will be officially a doctor. That means in 5 days, roughly, I will have to send my thesis to the committee so that they have enough time to read it, because they apparently need a month to read this thing. It's a little unfortunate that I get these comments all bunched at once and only in a month or so from now, while I could already be publishing my second and third chapter before then with their input, but so be it. So fourth chapter, it'll be written in 4 days or so. It's gonna be pretty much like an undergrad paper where you're just writing something up and pull an all-nighter and call it good enough because you have to. So yeah, so far my mind is just set on those 5 days until June the 7th. And enjoying things like this here. This is a beautiful trail.